I got money on my mind. I'm just trying to get some dough. I ain't picking up my line unless it's money on the phone.
Recently, you know, we just had this presidential election that's still technically going on. It's been pretty crazy, everything that's been going on with this election. But we just kind of want to talk about with the Biden win, some of those proposed legislations and kind of the effect of what that actually means when it comes to, you know,
you and your
investing in finances. Because I mean, you know, they've been talking about this election. It's like this is the most important election of your life. But I mean, all of us, as we know, we're not huge subscribers to the idea that politicians are going to change our lives. It's more so like your day-to-day life is not going to be affected by who's in office. It's more so about how you move based on how they're going to move with legislation. So we kind of want to hop into some of the different things that have been proposed. So I know one of the biggest topics that's been going all over ever since the Biden win has been taxes. People have been like, oh, Biden's going to raise taxes. So we was like doing some digging and stuff on it. Just kind of want to get some of the facts out there that we could find about it. So just for the tax plan, for anybody that's not familiar with it, the proposed Biden tax plan would be basically taxing people who made over $400,000. Their tax rate would go up from being 37% to 39%. That's on like the employee side of things. If the corporate businesses, so like S Corp, C Corps, their tax rate would go up from 21% to 28%. So you would see an increase there. So like if you own a S Corp or anybody like that, your taxes just went up. The child tax credits, those change from 2K to 3K, correct?
So that means you're able to write off more, right?
Yes. Yeah. So you're able to get a higher deduction for your kid. And they talking about first-time home buyer credits and stuff like that. So it's a lot of stuff to unpack with this tax plan. What was the capital gains tax again, bro? I know he's talking about upping the capital gains tax too.
Yeah, they were talking about upping the capital gains tax if you have over $1 million in assets, and then if it's when you sell it, if it's sold in a period of time, you'll be taxed as much as 60%. But that's just a rumor that's going around. It's a possible proposal, but we'll see as the time goes on. But it's going to get interesting. I think one of the biggest things is, and like I said, I don't know if I haven't found any article that's talking about this, but I've seen it on Twitter about the tax on stocks. When you purchase stocks, I think that's going to be huge, since it will directly affect those that invest into the stock market.
You come against that what?
Yeah, he said there's a proposed tax of like, I want to say it's either 0.1 or 0.01% on each transaction.
Each equity transaction, I think I did see that.
Yes, sir.
So if you want to play in the capital markets, you're going to have Uncle Sam getting his hand in there too.
I need my cuts, man.
I mean, investing got a whole lot more popular over the past few years.
It did. It's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out. And I want people that's listening to understand that this is what it's really about. This is what the election is really about. It's understanding what's going to happen and how can you move to move your money and take advantage of it. Right? There's always going to be an advantage. There's always going to be a disadvantage. Find the advantages and use them to your advantage.
Yeah, because man, the way Trump came through this thing, he cut some regulations back. Like it was, he opened up taxes like a motherfucker. I think before what the corporate tax rate was like closer to 30-some%, and then he chopped that whole down to 21. Like he cut back some regulations. So like when it comes to taxes, I guess everybody concerned would be like, oh man, Biden gonna raise taxes. That's like the whole Democrat thing. But like my brother Kelly was saying, it's all about how you move. Yeah. It's all about how you what are their policies and how you react to them.
Just like we were talking about the capital gains, I think if that does get passed or a similar proposal gets passed, I think you'll see a lot more 1031 exchanges. Like that, and that's what I'm talking about, taking advantage of understanding what the tax is or what's going to happen, and then using that to your advantage of using a 1031 exchange so you don't have to pay taxes.
Real quick, Kelly, can you break down what the 1031 exchange is?
I'm not a lawyer, but I will say, from my understanding,
this is not investment advice.
No, not at all. Is when you are selling something, a house, some type of asset, and you're purchasing another asset within a period of time.
Mhm.
and you don't have to particularly pay
Taxes on the
that.
gains.
Yes.
Yep. So
Hey, and I kind of want to talk about like some of the sectors that we can start looking into seeing under this new administration, some sectors that you
So-
could possibly see taking off
Mhm.
that you can really kind of benefit from and kind of get ahead of the ball while it's still time.
yeah, like with everything, I mean, it's still everything is still in the proposal stage. Obviously, Biden's still the president-elect, and we waiting on everything to shake out all this stuff. We don't know what policies are actually going to come to fruition, but I know one of the biggest things, one of the biggest speculations with the market since Biden was elected is the whole proposal around the Green New Deal. A lot of people have been talking about that for the past few years now. Been a thing, and the whole thing with the Green New Deal is like progressing America and the world away from fossil fuels and non-renewable energy sources to the point where we become a zero net emissions, which means the amount of carbon we're putting out is actually being absorbed by the atmosphere instead of being stored and, causing issues by 2050. So with that being said, you're starting to see like a large push in the electro vehicle space, like a lot of renewable energy things. And another part of the Green New Deal that I just want to address, like, is infrastructure too. They were talking about infrastructure and also income inequality. That was a part of it. There's just like where it's talking about, the wage gap, the wealth gap, these opportunities that are not created. One of the big things with it, like similar to the original New Deal with FDR, is it would be like government subsidied public jobs, public high paying jobs, basically, like where they would help these energy companies kind of, get some things started to give these opportunities to communities that are relying heavily already on the oil field to make their money. So just kind of like something to think about that transition. So I know with that one of the biggest, three of the big sectors that we were talking about were like renewable energy, solar, like wind, all that stuff. The electronic vehicles, those have been taking off. Those are going crazy.
I need that Hummer.
Man, y'all seen that new Hummer?
I
Son?
seen the Hummer. Who has another
Jid.
BMW's got one.
Rivian.
Mercedes got
Wait,
one.
what? It's a Hummer.
Did you see the electric Hummer, my
I
brother?
have not seen the electric Hummer.
I did see the price.
didn't see
The price is ridiculous.
They out they mind thinking people gonna pay that shit.
My
Yeah,
brother,
the
but
price is
did you
ridiculous.
see the little thing it could do with the wheels?
That's fine.
That
Again,
shit was
I'm not
precious,
paying
son.
6 figures for an electric Hummer, bro.
Yeah.
Wait,
No.
what?
Yeah,
bro.
they're starting off at a man.
Jared, hear me out though, son. Hear me out. They did some great marketing with this thing, man. They had this little piece in the commercial, bro, where it was like the wheels, son. Them hoes can turn diagonal.
And your truck stay the same
Your
thing.
truck stay the same direction. And your shit could like spider walk, my brother.
It's called a
pretty cool.
crab walk.
I ain't gonna lie, it's pretty cool. I ain't gonna lie, they got some pretty precious stuff. But like, just with that said, like the electronic vehicle market, it's a lot of speculation around it right now. A lot of proposed, like people thinking this is going to be the new wave.
The next thing, the next big thing.
And with that, just talking about going back to electric vehicles and talking about Hummer, do y'all think that's going to be the upcoming push for GM to come back in Detroit?
It is. They actually are converting that manufacturing, the Detroit facility, into an electric manufacturing facility, and that's what a lot of companies are doing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the existing companies, they're converting some of those factories where they're producing into actual electric vehicle producing factories. There's another company called Rivian. Rivian was invested.
Ford, right?
Ford and Amazon invested in a Rivian. So Rivian is another electric brand. They have a truck that they're about to drop. And the truck's supposed to go 400 plus miles. It got like 750 horsepower, 0 to 60 in like 3 seconds or some shit. And like their whole thing is they're designing like what's called a skateboard thing. And it's just going to be like something where you can place different models onto this and you can get different electric vehicles. So the reason Ford partnered with them, I went to do some research. Ford is going to take that skateboard, do a model off of it, and Amazon is going to take that skateboard and do their delivery vehicles off of that thing. So they're trying to make sure that Rivian is proven and that Rivian can be successful. But what Rivian did was they purchased the old Mitsubishi site, and they redone it into where it's now a fully automated electrical vehicle site, to where you can start just processing. So now they didn't have to go buy a new facility and start new construction like Tesla's doing. No, they found
They already
something
had
that was
the
already
factories, yeah.
existing, and they just converted it over.
Change the means of production to making these newer things. But I think that's definitely a very interesting trend to point out too. Like, just even with this Green New Deal, like a lot of these companies that are already here, that have been here for a while, they're definitely starting to make their pivot. And that's something for people to pay attention to. Like, even with Workhorse, with the USPS. So USPS, they got this.
Did they get that deal?
They didn't get the deal yet.
I didn't
So
think so.
USPS, for anybody that's unfamiliar, our government, as part of that Green New Deal proposal, is like trying to get all of our mail carriers on electric vehicles by 2030. So there's a big, huge contract out there. I think it's like $6 to $8 billion or something like that for these companies, and they're not sure how they're going to allocate it. Like, it's a lot of speculation around it. Some think like Workhorse is going to get the whole contract. Some think they're going to break it up between multiple companies. Nobody's really sure yet how it's going to play out. But that right there is just another sign, like, okay, this is where things are moving. If the Postal Service, that's been around since the goddamn, 1800s? Like, the Postal Service, they started off on horses, like my brother said. Like, they're like, okay, we need to move away from these gas vehicles onto these more renewable sources. There's like definitely something for you to be looking at for the next 10 years. Like, everybody love Tesla. We love Tesla because it's like, Tesla volatile as hell. It's crazy. They had a stock split.
Everybody love Elon Musk.
Everybody love Elon Musk, but there are a lot of other actual players in this market.
It's a lot of players in that market. It's going to get bigger and bigger as time grows.
And they're fairly new too, fairly new. So we say all of that to say, start looking at some of these electric companies that you can get into the market with before you got to pay taxes on trading and stuff. Just saying, if that does happen. So start looking into some of these things that you can start benefiting from.
Don't just invest blindly into these things. Like, I just want to talk about one company real quick, Nikola.
I was about to say the one that let you down.
Yeah, man, Nikola, man. I ain't gonna lie, he let me down, man. I seen a picture of one.
He was on Nikola?
I ain't buying no stock.
He was advocating for it.
I was advocating for it. I saw their trucks and I saw the design. I was like, ooh, that truck pressure, son. Ooh, man, that thing, like, that been hard. That's one of the hardest trucks. Then, like, I started digging more into them. And it's a lot of shit with Nikola. Like, they don't even have an actual truck on the road.
No, their truck does not work. The truck that they put on the video was getting pulled.
Bro, they put it on a low grade hill, a very low grade hill. And like, I was looking at it and I was like, damn, they are right. Like, if you paying attention to it, the way the camera angle is, they try to like tilt it so you can't really see, but it's definitely like on a downward slope and it's just like coasting. They pulled it to the top and let it coast.
So I think the biggest thing with that, so I don't want to get too far into it, but just make sure you do your research. If a company ain't released a product yet, it's just speculative, guys.
And they public?
It's just speculative. Don't put your life savings into it. Don't buy the hype. Yeah. It's just speculative.
Real quick, I'm gonna give people something else. Just
they reported earnings last week. What you think they earned?
I don't know.
What do you think they generated?
Probably pretty zero. Big fat zero.
They ain't got no revenue?
I can imagine, bro.
Okay, so here's my thing, right? They must have did that SPAC to go public.
They did.
They did?
Yeah.
Okay.
All these EV companies are doing SPAC.
They also, so okay, just to talk to y'all about that, because I was supposed to talk to y'all about that a while ago. For anybody that's unfamiliar with SPACs, that's just something that it's been around for a while. They've been really popular coming into 2020. What a SPAC is a special purpose acquisition company. So what those are basically, they call blank check companies. So these companies, they get people who are like hedge fund managers, people who invest in venture, that type of stuff for a living. And their goal is they take a company public that has no operations. They raise a bunch of capital, and the purpose of that company is to purchase another company. So we've seen a lot of SPAC acquisitions over the past 3 or 4 months.
It's the busiest since the 90s.
Yeah,
Like that?
yeah, like SPACs had fell off for a long time, but now like that's how most people are going public right now. I think who was the most recent?
I know
think
Helion just did.
Helion,
It was one that was recent.
Diamond Peak. Diamond Peak was one that bought somebody. I think they bought Lordstown Motor.
Yeah.
That's another EV company that's I think it's British or something like that. But these SPACs are allowing these companies to go public. And it's a way to buy into a company. So like whenever you buy a SPAC, right? This is usually some of these companies are already public, but some of these companies aren't public that they're buying. So what you're doing is buying the stock of this company that's not really a company. And then whenever they actually make the acquisition.
So whenever they buy.
Yeah, whenever they buy. Because that's a detail I left out. With SPACs, they have to make a purchase within 2 years.
Yes.
That's a thing. Like, so if they form a SPAC, if they started in 2018, 2020, they have to make something shake or they have to disband it and redistribute the funds back to investors. So that's a way for people to get into some of these companies that are recently going public, maybe. But I wouldn't just say, just do it. Definitely look at do your research.
Like I said, it's speculative.
Yeah.
The company ain't got no business. It's speculative.
Unless they proving how they making that bread.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're going there in that fundamental analysis whenever we talk about that in the stock course.
Yes, sir.
Coming soon.